I'll start the one, and then your welcome address will be there.
Yes. Okay.
Hello, Professor Tapan.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Shared it. Okay.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, yes.
Pen, pencil, paper. No, I've got.
So, very good morning to one and all present here. Dear friends, it's a great moment for School of Architecture and Design, DIT University, to organize this one-day symposium on implications of NEP 2020 in architecture and design education. According to the Davis and Murray's theory of social stratification, an educational system helps in the mechanism for ensuring that most talented and able members of society are allocated to those positions which are functionally most important for the society. Thus, education policy of a nation directly influences the socio-economic and cultural development of its citizens. Many important factors are taken into consideration during formulation of education policies. National Education Policy 2020 is such an attempt by Government of India to transform the existing education system of the country and aims to address many growing development imperatives of India. The policy is also going to break the silos between different areas of our education system. During today's event, we'll try to explore the influence of NEP 2020 on architecture and design education in India. Now, I would request our director, Professor Chhavi Mishra ma'am, to deliver the welcome address. Professor Chhavi Mishra is an architect, landscape urbanist, master planner, and an academic with 40 years of rich experience. With a bachelor's degree from prestigious Sir J.J. College of Architecture and master's degree in landscape architecture from University of Wisconsin, USA, she brings 20 years of industry experience from US, having worked as principal designer and management lead with cutting-edge international firms such as Smith Group JJR, Don Boss and Associates, Robert Anderson, and City of Austin. Over to you, ma'am, for the welcome address.
Thank you, Jitendra. Good morning to all my colleagues, to the esteemed speakers of the day. Honorable Chancellor Sir, he's not present at the moment, and hopefully PVC Sir would also join in the process sometime later. And welcome to this session of understanding the implications of NEP 2020 on design educations. We have very distinguished panelists and speakers, Professor Rajat Ray, Professor Tapan Chakravarti, Professor Paresh Chaudhary, all are distinctive in their own contribution to the field of architecture and design, both. And they have been, they are practitioners as well as academics. So we would hope to have a good interactive and insightful session today. And I request all of you to be proactive, put down your questions, and be informal about it at the end. Welcome to all experts.
Thank you. Good morning, Tapan.
Good morning, good morning.
Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So little excerpts from NEP 2020, the National Education Policy envisions a comprehensive restructuring of the higher education system to overcome the major fragmentation challenges in education ecosystem, observing the minimal emphasis on cognitive skill development and professional education and other disciplines operating in silos. NEP proposes a robust, interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary, interface of teaching and learning system. The NEP 2020 is visionary in its approach and lays emphasis at holistic development of students. It aims at reviving India's position as the Vishwa Guru. Such an approach needs dramatic revamping of curriculum and policies. So the clause 20.6 under professional education mentions the crucial role of architecture and town planning disciplines, recommending multidisciplinary programs for overall sustainable development of India. So here I thought I would just list out a few compatibility and relevance with architecture education with NEP 2020. So teaching and learning pedagogy being one of the most important aspect of this policy, it categorically explains that it needs to be much more experiential, hands-on, and storytelling based. And all of this is for architecture and design fields. In architecture education, our overall curriculum actually pivots, which we all know, around the above, especially the design studios. But probably more emphasis needs to be given on every single other subjects which we teach, however theoretical it may be. So one of my concern is the way we teach structures. It's always a problem for students of architecture to sort of cope up with architecture subject and sort of enjoy it and like it. So that dreadful feeling of, oh my God, structure class, to bridge that gap, I think is very, very crucial. So something like a project-based consultancy mode of teaching by a practicing structural engineer with who has practical experience. We did that in Sushant School, and Tapan and Rajat would know about this. Professor Ajay Sahani used to teach, and also I invited him to GD Goenka University, and he taught it that way. So the way he used to teach is he's an extremely good structural engineer. He's almost like an architect. He thinks like an architect. He's worked with Mahindra Raj extensively and many other good architects. So he would bring in his staff from office, and he would teach every single class from first year to final year. I mean, and then conduct it like a consultancy mode. He will bring in his staff. He will give a lecture first, and then he'll give an assignment. And his office staff will oversee the assignment and then mark the students, explain the difficulties or whatever, mark the attendance and leave. So, and then he was paid lump sum. I think that was fantastic. His class was 100% attended. There was 100% result, like, everybody passed, and the ones who were falling behind, he would call them on Saturday to his office and explain to them. So this was my understanding with him, that you please call them on Saturday, and he did that free of charge. So this is something we have to think creatively for the study of architecture structure in our education. Pedagogy to be strongly rooted in Indian context, local context in terms of culture, traditions, heritage, indigenous technology and knowledge. And architecture, engineering and technology and management would be most sought after for the development of India. These are again excerpts from NEP. Promotion of creativity with autonomy and flexibility to innovate curriculum, pedagogy and assessment with revision to choice-based credit system. And also focus on research. National Research Foundation should help in procuring grants for most disciplines. And NEP expects that every single institutions, especially the universities, the ones that qualify to be universities with a certain strength, I think it talks about 2,000 plus students enrollment, should have their own NRF. And I think we are sort of gearing towards that. We do have a very strong research unit in our education system nowadays in every college, and especially in DIT. And then we can sort of look for more grants so that we can do more, expand on research area. The primary activities of NRF will be to fund competitive, peer-reviewed grant proposals of all types and across all disciplines. And plant a seed and grow, and you can it would help facilitated research at university level. So this is what the whole NRF focuses on. So we at the department level should be able to scout some opportunities to expand in the research area with the support of NRF, because that is one of our shortcomings and probably is the shortcoming for all schools of architecture. And it also mentions, the NEP also mentions that the learning environment must be student-centric. And it is very important. We all think that every college of architecture is, but apparently it is not. I will not name an institution. I recently did a council inspection of a very reputed institution, but I was very, very shocked. And the entire panel agreed that the institution is extremely faculty-centric in their teaching and learning environment. They had, of course, their strength was faculty, but each faculty sort of did their own thing and steered whatever they want to teach. And nothing was mentioned about how students feel, what is the work of students, what is the ratio. The ratio was very, very high. And what is the outcome, learning outcome of all these subjects, which each faculty had sort of outlined it based on their expertise and skills, which sounded very hi-fi and very pleasant to hear, almost like research papers, but how effectively it translated to students was unknown to me. So optimal learning environment for students, more research, students exchange, collaborations with international universities to be incorporated with equivalent credit transfer. This equivalent credit transfer was something which COA hadn't thought about. I mean, I'm sure they thought about, but they were a little stringent about it, that no matter who goes where, eventually the evaluation will be at the parent institution. But now COA internship is beginning to mention that, their students are allowed to go abroad and their credit should be able to get transferred. Collaborations and support. NEP suggests that universities support other universities, which is very, very interesting. And this will be really helpful with through resource sharing with other higher education institutions in the form of FDP and community engagement. This would be fantastic if we can all do that, but somehow in India, we don't handhold other institutions with whether we should mentor them or we can latch on to another institution which is very strong in certain areas would be very, very helpful. Since that would be, we have so many institutions, maybe they should get paired up, and that is something maybe can be done at the council level, or some kind of policy should evolve so that we do resource sharing and more of interactions and collaborations with each other rather than competing negatively. And attracting international students, the policy talks about that we should be teaching Indian languages and systems of medicines, yoga, music, and culture, so that this would attract international students, because many cultures, they are interested in learning more about these aspects of Indian education. In order to bridge the gap between the core and other disciplines, see, nowadays we are really focusing on choice-based credit system, and then eventually we are all sort of steering towards fully flexible choice-based credit system. This is already applicable for many other disciplines, especially in computer sciences and engineering fields, but it is very difficult for architecture and design courses because we are heavy with our core subjects. And since these are very specialized courses, our core courses are higher in percentage and they must be taught. So, and after that, there are other aspects like, building science and engineering, professional ability enhancement, and electives are left at lesser percentage. If you can see, the existing BR course has 50% core courses. and building science and engineering 20%, and professional ability enhancement 15%. And the rest is in electives. This is something is mandated by Council of Architecture. So again, there is a sort of directive to not teach the students too much, to not overload them too much. There should be, so to balance it out, the only way we can be more flexible is to add more electives and maybe some professional ability enhancement courses. So the flexibility lies primarily in the choice of electives and professional ability enhancement courses. So in the existing undergraduate programs, BR students will be offered flexibility to choose from different baskets, such as language and literature, humanities and liberal arts, skill enhancement courses, ability enhancement courses, which will be offered as free electives by the departments across the university. This is something we are trying to do. And for the coming academic year, we are starting with FFCBCS for architecture and some design subjects. And this is the only way we are starting out. And NEP also focuses that we need to be sensitive towards students, those who are slow learners, and also. Sorry, I couldn't hear the question properly. What?
What is this FSCBS, something like that you said you're offering? What is that?
Oh, this is a fully flexible choice-based credit system.
Okay.
This is a education, the credit system that now UGC is sort of mandating for all universities to follow, so that the students who come in are able to choose their subjects, and whichever core subjects or whichever subjects they want to learn at whatever time and whatever pace, basically to make it more and more student-centric. So engineering, computer sciences, and other humanities, many other disciplines are following it strictly. Like a fast learner can take something very advanced at a very nascent level, whereas a slow learner can take it easy and sort of learn it at its own pace. And then, so that is what it is. And for architecture and design, it's a little difficult because we have core subjects that are prerequisites to advance into our curriculum. So in the NEP's directives, a fast learner can earn more credits. I mean, sorry, the FFCBCS directive says the fast learner can earn more credits over the minimum requirement to complete the program. So this also brings about another point of mentor-mentee system, which is NEP also focuses, and it sort of infiltrates through all aspects of the university's functioning, whether it is academic or it is extracurricular or it is the entire comprehensive development of a student. So the mentor-mentee system is something we are really focusing on, and our Honorable Chancellor Sir is very keen that there is a robust, effective, and working mentor-mentee system followed in DITU University. And for this FFCBCS, we may even have an academic advisor who will guide the students what they should, which subject they should take in which semester. And the mentor-mentee system would also help in that. And the mentor could himself or herself be the academic advisor. So other related activities which NEP focuses on is community development and volunteering. So we all do that in architecture colleges. Many projects have this aspects of it inbuilt, and we do interact with communities. We take their feedback, and it is a back and forth public participation systems, and it all depends on the studios. But I guess we need to do more of that. And in School of Architecture and Design, we already have adopted Village, which is a nearby village. The initiative of DITU University to adopt 5 nearby villages, and School of Architecture has one, which is Bhagwanpur. And we have already adopted that village and have initiated many activities during COVID times. And even the school is also is part of their program, where we go and we taught the students how to do water conservation and how to learn graphics and all kinds of stuff. And they are also connecting with volunteering organizations and NGOs like STRI to the idea is to make the villages and the villagers more independent in earning and living their livelihood, not imposing them what they should learn, but helping them reach their aspirations. So, but NEP talks about making this whole effort more multidisciplinary and collaborative. So we are trying to for every project, we are trying to see if School of Engineering, School of Languages and Management, and School of Computing, and many other can join in. And students from disadvantaged social economic background also need special attention to transition from high school to higher education. I think this is a huge deal because many students come from very different background, sometimes rural background, sometimes from a background where parents are not even educated. So for them, it's a huge jump and huge system. So like I said, the strong mentor-mentee system needs to be in place, which we already have, and we are trying to make it more and more robust and effective in implementation. NEP also talks about faculty, which is interesting, and never to forget that faculty is the core and the heart of success of any education system and an institution. So it talks about its concerns and importance of faculty to be happy, enthusiastic, engaged, and motivated towards advancing his or her career and the institution and the profession in general. So teaching duties should never be excessive. Student-teacher ratio should not be too high, so that a student is never made to falls through the crack, because every student is important and every student is a citizen of this country, and they conduct research, etc. And faculty recruitment to be conducted entirely through merit appointments and career progression based on three aspects: teaching, research, and service. So we have had many discussion, and the discussion is still ongoing if a faculty is allowed and can only teach or can only research, but needs to do academic service for sure. So how do we assess their merit? Hiring outstanding local artists, writers, craftspersons, and other experts as master instructors in various subjects of local expertise. Accurate inclusion of traditional Indian knowledge, including tribal and other local knowledge, throughout into the curriculum across humanities, sciences, arts, crafts, and sports. This is something NEP suggests, which we all do. I mean, we do conduct workshops, seminars, conferences with the traditional craftsmen, but we probably don't do enough. And probably some of these can be our visiting faculty or some, and they can be more imbibed into teaching subjects like advanced technology or construction methods, and we can call the craftsperson who are doing work in different areas. And for now, we can even just focus on Uttarakhand itself, which has so many styles of architecture, materials, and technologies which are there, but not in the forefront of the built environment. So teachers will undergo, this is something NEP also suggests, that teachers should undergo rigorous training in learner-centric pedagogy. Not that you want teaching the same subjects because you are comfortable and this is your skill. They should keep getting trained, keep getting updated, so that they can look at the syllabus and make it even more student-centric and more effective and bridge the gap between industry and education. So there will be emphasis on teachers' role in facilitating active student engagement with the content and with each other. So, the feedback from students and brainstorming with each other, and then every time evolving the curriculum is something is expected of a faculty to do, and they need to be trained to do that. There are just few issues I have listed. There are much more which will come up, I'm sure, during this course of our one-day discussion. Will architecture education in the process of becoming multidisciplinary become more and more fragmented, which already it is in some ways. Some experts argue it that way, and lose its core values. Where does one draw the line? The exit plan after 3 years may encourage fewer students to enroll for BR 5-year course. If they get out after 3 years, which is something, the NEP suggests that the structural lengths of degree program shall be adjusted. The undergraduate degree will be of 3 to 4 years duration with multiple exit options, with appropriate certifications, certificate after completing 1 year in a discipline or field, including vocational and professional areas, or a diploma after 2 years of study, or a bachelor's degree after 3-year program. So we have to be very, very careful about how we structure the Bachelor's of Architecture program. Should we just continue with 5-year program and introduce separate programs for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, for diploma? There is also argument about that how do, maybe at a very initial stage, we evaluate students and then say, okay, you are really not for architecture. Maybe, you've done architecture for a year and your performance is not so good and you don't seem to be motivated. Maybe you should go for design. Maybe you should go for computer science. Maybe you should go for humanities. So how do we, when and where do we do this? Or should we even do this? Maybe it's just a reality because everybody is looking at, okay, if I spend so much time and money for 5 years, what do we get at the end of it? If I take 2 years or 3 years into the program and exit out, will I be equally employable? Will I equally make money? And will I be equally effective to contribute to the profession and to the society? Medium of instructions of local languages, NEP suggests that we should include Hindi, Punjabi, Bengali, Kannada, all local languages. So it may really create a demand of regional language fluent teachers. So how does it really apply to global competitiveness? If then how do we teach if there is a student from Spain or from Nigeria or from Netherlands? Will they learn Hindi? I mean, do we learn their language? I mean, it's just this multilingualism becomes a prerequisite for faculty recruitment. Does this limit us, or does it allow us to have a huge length and breadth of expertise in the university? We need to be careful about this because this is a huge change. Emphasis on online education and open distance learning and all of the infrastructure and learning materials to be accessible and available to learners with disabilities. How does one achieve experiential and hands-on learning, which we talked about, if we get more and more into online education and ODL, open distance learning, especially in architecture and design fields? So this is something we have to draw a balance. And how do we really do that? And what does it do to the profession? What does it do to the vernacular aspects of architecture and the techniques and the materials? So top institutions accredited for ODL will be encouraged and supported to develop high quality online courses. Such quality online courses will be suitably integrated into curriculum of higher education institutions, and a blended mode will be preferred. This is already happening. We all know that. MOOC courses and SWAYAM courses and all of that. And we are sort of trying to see where we fit in. But how much of that should we really focus on, and how much of that should we really try to preserve as core architecture design principles in teaching and learning architecture is something to see. So this is all I have for now, and hopefully this sets the framework for today's discussion. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for so nicely setting the stage and outlining the relevance of NEP 2020 in architecture and design education, especially the role of NRF. I'm very happy to share that our Honorable Chancellor, Sir, Shri N. Ravishankar ji, has accepted our request to deliver the opening remark for the event. N. Ravishankar, sir, combines rich administrative experience.
Sir, we can dispense with the introduction. I would just talk.
Sure, sir.
Right.
I would like to request, please.
Okay. Very good morning to everyone. And it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this National Symposium on Implications of New Education Policy 2020 in Architecture and Design Education. As Dr. Chabi Mishra has already spelled out about it, I would like to take this opportunity to extend a very warm welcome to Professor Rajat Ray, to Professor Tapan Chakrabarti, to Professor Paresh Chaudhary, Dr. Chabi Mishra herself, architect Jitendra Sarohi, and all participants here for this particular symposium. The new education policy has one particular facet, and that is let education be interdisciplinary, let it be multidisciplinary. Let it not exist in silos. This being the case, the whole structure is students of engineering, architecture need to have a modicum of exposure to the liberal arts. Similarly, students of the liberal arts need to have a grounding in mathematics, computer science. So that way, we are trying to see that education becomes all-encompassing. If education is all-encompassing, then the new education policy tries to state everyone that everyone can be a winner. In that sense, that you study at your pace, you exit when you wish to, and you pick up a certificate, diploma, or a degree en route. So it is the very initiation of a concept of what is called lifelong learning. Okay, you start on learning some facet, you can come back to education and then pick up threads so that learning is a continuous, seamless activity. Now let's get to this core of NEP in education and design education. As Dr. Chabi Mishra had mentioned, architecture tries to encompass what are societal needs. If we have to encompass societal needs, it needs understanding of the social structure of society, the living patterns, and the way in which the fundamentals of human existence can go to blend what can be the architecture. Today we have urbanization trends at a very rapid pace in our country, which means that several villages are slowly becoming ghost villages. This is a phenomena we notice very much in Uttarakhand, where the villagers have moved out because as opportunities exist higher in the urban areas, the rural area population migrates outwards. This places a huge stress on the urban areas. If that is so, how do we design cities? Because 30 to 40% of our cities have what can be called very close confined population, which we term as juggi, jopdi, basti or slums. But then human existence should have dignity, and that's the very philosophy with which the national endeavors of development are all focused upon. The planning tries to encompass that all of these juggi, jopdi, bastis, slums get into more proper designs. I think that gives to the whole world of architecture and design a complete challenge. The way in which cities get clogged with uh, the water supply and the sewage systems or the drainage systems, that again puts a stress because we are high densification. Now this is where we need to understand how we live, the way we live, and how we can redesign our lives to be more qualitative in its aspect. I think from that particular purpose, I would think that the NEP, the new education policy, which tries to integrate the liberal arts into the stream of architecture and design education, has relevance because we need to understand sociology, we need to understand the uh, dynamics of communities and the way in which they live. So the transition from the old to the new, the urban technological uh, growth which changes lives. We are now a tech savvy generation, so we need to understand how this tech savvy generation looks at the whole concept of society, livelihood, and human existence. I think this is where I will like to place emphasis on. We look at rural areas and we try to see the way they live. Now, can we bring the modern precepts into the rural lifestyle to make their quality of life better? Because what used to be old structures, uh, mud and also wood, can we make them concrete and steel? Because this is where there is the aspiration amongst the rural masses also. All these concepts of in the context of Uttarakhand, where we are in zone 4 and 5 of the uh, earthquake proneness, gives us a challenge that we need to upgrade the quality of housing stock so that they become earthquake resistant. This also places an emphasis on re-engineering our cities to better livelihood so that they can also get it. Design education, where we normally say to every individual, you are the architect, you are the lives of your lives, and you design your lifestyle. So I think if I use these very words of architecture and design, that every individual is the architect of his or her life and they design their life. We need to understand that in a macro sense and see how can education offered in the confines of a university try and encapsulate it. Whether it is a 750 square feet household, how can a family of 4 live? And what is the thing? Do they sleep on the floor or do they now have what you can call beds? Do they have furniture in their home? If so, if that is an aspirational aspect, how can we design this? We can learn a lot from Japan, which is very uh, hard pressed for urban space, and they design some of their lifestyle in a manner which can coexist with their fast changing lives. So we also need to see if their aspiration of having the lifestyle of the rich and upper middle class is something that percolates down to the rural area. How can they redesign their rural village habitat? Because then the habitat can be restructured. Social engineering is occurring in the sense that the barriers that existed in a village atmosphere of uh, different castes and communities living segregated, I think that all needs to get obliterated in the way in which an urban lifestyle is. So once we get the whole thing from the transition from an urban to a rural, which is today a phenomenon that does not exist if you go to visit the state of Kerala, where it is a continuum. There is nothing called a rural or an urban, it is a continuum. From Trivandrum to Kochi, it is a continuum. So I think we have to slowly look upon our country and its rural-urban integration into that facet. The highways, the national highways, the state highways are all linkers. The optical fibers are linkers. So while one offers commerce, the other offers e-commerce. We need to look at the whole gamut of change that is occurring around our lifestyle. Similarly, when we look at not just the habitat, why don't we look at the apparel segment? Uh, there has been a change in the way in which we adorn ourselves. Our clothes define us. From what it was 70 years back to what it is today, many of us have taken to the Western way of wearing, whether it is the young in the universities or schools or in the workplace, and we need to understand change. We may have our old, but we can have a synthesis with the old and the new. It is while we may adopt Western wear, it does not mean we have given up our ethnic wear when we celebrate our festivals or so. Now, this is where I would like to say the language construct has come in. The ability to understand concepts and precepts are much better when it is done so in the local language or the mother tongue. So that's basically the idea that is emphasized in the new education policy. While Dr. Mishra had definitely pointed out to the aspect that we need to see that English retains its flavor in the higher education sphere. Yes, we can slowly have an induction of even have assisted teaching for people who have not had their educational school education in English, maybe in the mother tongue Bengali or Hindi or even Telugu, Kannada, Tamil, etc. They can slowly integrate when they come to the higher educational field so that there is a uniformity. Once precepts and concepts are understood, then the ability to move up in the academic ladder becomes that much more vibrant. I look at this whole issue of the new education policy in its entirety, seamlessly cutting the bridges between the sciences and the arts, which a celebrated academic and Professor C.P. Snow talked about the two cultures. I mean, it is Professor Snow's two cultures which looked at the arts and the sciences. He himself taught the sciences, but he was a good author. So he blended that very seamlessly, and this two cultures assimilation, which is what the new education policy is all about. I look at it in a very cryptic statement that the NEP in architecture and design education and across any other branch of learning is all about collaboration, cooperation, and coordination. With these few thoughts of mine, I wish this symposium all the very best. I wish to congratulate the School of Architecture and Design for having conceptualized this symposium and wish the entire team all the very best. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the wonderful opening remarks and emphasizing on the requirement of multidisciplinary education system for the country. Now, due to the prior appointments, our Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor Brigadier M. Srinivasan sir could not join us, so we will proceed with the next agenda, that is session 1. I start with the session 1 of the symposium, and our speaker for session 1 is Professor Rajat Ray. Professor Ray is a professor in University School of Planning and Architecture, Guru Gobind Singh University. He is a fellow of Institute of Urban Designers of India. He has been consultant to Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage and Heritage Building Consultant of Kolkata Municipal Corporation. He is the ex-member of Delhi Urban Arts Commission Task Force on Conservation, and he has been the member of Technical Commission of Architectural Design Competition for Indira Gandhi National Center for Arts. Welcome, Professor Rajat Ray. I would now invite Professor Rajat for session 1. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Audible?
Yes, sir.
Well, Because I'm an architect, and I think my role will be focused more towards teaching of architecture, and then design will be integrated to that. And I think Tapan will speak more on design, or both of us are architects, so anyway, it's connected. So I will start with one comment that the NEP document, which is a compressed sort of paper on various aspects, on larger aspects of philosophical dimension, administrative structuring, down to student-centric education and to village adaptation, involvement of the lowest person in the community in integrated in the education system. So that saying that, to my mind, the NEP document is almost 100% a supply side document. So there is a vision, it anticipates change, and it's sort of pointing towards a different situation, a different kind of a situation which it hopes that we are heading towards, and it tries to prepare itself for that situation and gradually moving on to the, but this is a supply side statement. So a lot of the ideas which are good, obviously, but they are not yet demanded by people to be like that. But always there is an egg and chicken issue there. So once something happens from this side, somebody gets an idea and they change their mind and things happen that way. So having said that, I'll just start with what I understand about architectural education is going to be going to happen if, as and when NEP is implemented, and it's basically on the cards. And I think in the implementation strategy, one of the earliest things is going to happen this. So the NEP has kept medicine and law outside the ambit of NEP among the professional courses. Architecture has been taken inside under the NEP ambit, which it shows that architecture is already considered as something, a discipline which has various possibilities. So that's why it is brought into the NEP fold, which means it is along with other subjects. So what will happen to architecture? That the Council of Architecture today has two roles. One is the role of professional certification, that is a profession role, and the other is the role of maintaining standards of education inside the university, so the academic role. So what is to be taught in architecture and how it is to be taught is suggested or sort of controlled or mandated by the Council of Architecture under the Act, Architects Act. And who can practice is also determined by the Council of Architecture. What's going to happen is this will be divided vertically in two parts. Council of Architecture is going to become a PSSB, as mentioned in the document itself you'll find. And PSSBs are professional standard setting bodies. Council's role on control of education will be highly limited. So as I foresee, the model would become, likely to become, as it appears, that the Council of Architecture, still if remains the authority, will prescribe and specify what is supposed to be taught in order for Council to recognize the student fit for practice, and the PSSB may or may not introduce their own qualifying examination, and that is another chapter. So what happens? A student who joins the course of architecture today is joining to do the Bachelor of Architecture program and becoming fit to register with the Council of Architecture to practice. Today that's happening. In the scenario of PSSB becoming separate, the university or the HEI, under the ambit of which the education will happen, now will have the responsibility to teach those courses and those number of credits to make the student eligible to go out and get certified by the PSSB to practice. That will be specified by the PSSB. So the concept of liberal education, which is now promoted by NEP more and more, means that on the demand side, if we have people, maybe we have, who want to study architecture but don't want to do practice or cannot do practice. So maybe one of them wants to do history of architecture as her special area of study. So today, what option that student has is to do Bachelor of Architecture to know architecture, and Master of MA in history to know history, to be a well learned person, to be a proper historian of architecture. That is the option today. He or she has to do this course and that course. Now here comes the question of core and elective. Now, if we look at what PSSB will specify, as it already does, there are certain courses which are core courses which they need to be done, and they make room for electives, which are done in the CBACS system or whatever, the electives are there. So there is a scenario where a student of architecture can, on the extreme bad case, they have also fixed electives in many colleges and universities. They're called electives, but even in IITs, they're called electives, but they're limited range, which is opening up. They're making more and more electives, more and more electives. Universities can offer cross-disciplinary, cross-program electives. All that is there now, already may increase, but the degree still remains B.Arch for the architecture student, and it is entirely modeled towards practice. Now, NEP is talking about recognizing other combinations in the form of degree, which means a scenario is there that the student now may take some courses of architecture and some other courses not only in the form of elective but with credits of higher importance, and go for another program. What it means is the university or the HEI, I think the NEP is actually not forward enough to understand or declare that the student eventually should be in a position to have larger number of selection of programs that the university or HEI is ready to offer, and defined as degrees they are offering under very other groups. So tomorrow I can go to architecture, take some subjects, I don't want to practice, I take some subjects of engineering, I want to become an architecture engineer, and the university will be now allowed and entitled to give a degree of architectural engineering. This gentleman or lady does not want to practice architecture, and if he goes, the PSSB will say, I won't recognize you, fine. He will practice as an entity called architectural engineer, and the professional implications will be handled outside the ambit. Now, the same, another person may do architecture, some subjects, and take up physics or take up history and create his or her own specializations. So at the other end of the university teaching system, which they had not yet gone to, that if the university or HEI is able to have a number of courses, large number of courses, and eventually, if the demand arises that way, the student can design his or own course, and the university will accept or certify that as a program and assign a corresponding qualification called a degree. That is the ultimate situation, which they don't still have in America as well. So, but we are far from that, both from demand side, because now come to the other issue, the horizontal distribution of CBA, CS and electives from that to the time, the vertical, where the emphasis or they're talking about exit policy. So it is imagining that a student will like to exit, or we decided that he or she has to exit and do something else. And it also says they can come back and complete something. But as far as I know, the implementation of exit policy in architecture has been tried out in Pune University for sure, and School of Planning Architecture in Delhi. Now there is no student to exit. Now look at the demand side. People who are studying, coming to study architecture, they want to study architecture. And you analyze and say somebody cannot do it, well, by force they have to study architecture. That's a pain. And eventually becomes an architect, perhaps also works as an architect subsequently of certain quality. But it is not a situation where the demand one such that people say, no, I'm not able to do architecture, let me go out. Or I've done enough and let me go out and do something. Because the market actually still does not have that kind of situation. So it's not yet happened. It may happen. So this exit policy also is an idea. It will take to come to effect and successfully come to effect. Now, the question of, let us say, the idea of, on the other extreme, Chabi was talking about structured teaching. Question of, there are two modes of structured teaching that is connected to this horizontal distribution. Structured teaching, just listen, can be looked at in two ways. One is the architect's pet word that a structure should be taught like design, as what she was talking about, experience in Sushant school, whatever that was, that architecture students are averse to studying structure. Therefore, it should be broken down and taught in a manner that they are understand the behavior of structures, avoid calculations, so that they can interact with the engineer subsequently who will design their structures. That sort of a mindset has been old and practiced in very important institutions in the country. So that is one thing. Now, this entity of doing structure, this manner of doing structure is one. On the other hand, from my personal experience, I have seen, architecture teachers may appreciate that the moment a student joins the course of architecture, design is slightly different, there's a kind of a hit. Each student in an Indian school who has come and joined a higher degree course has come through a discipline. They got up in the morning, went to school, came out, submitted all their tasks, home tasks, and went for attendance and stood up there and came out. They've gone through a manner of discipline. Philosophically, whether it is good or bad is another big discussion. Now, coming from there, when I entered the School of Architecture, in most cases, it kind of fizzles out. They stop writing, they stop calculating, they stop giving submissions into this new area where they are pressed upon some demand of creativity, which nobody can explain how it will happen. Only pressed upon, you have to be creative, do something new, this is good or that is bad. In that ambit, most of the subjects are already being studio oriented. There is a complete different mindset condition they come into. And I find to hold this at this whole open situation, which is apparently very productive or liberal, one needs, and from experience I'm saying, one needs certain subjects which can hold it at some point, and structure is one of them. Now, it's all right to understand behavior of structure and how it works, building components and how it works. To my mind, I don't want to get a detailed sort of threadbare fight amongst architects about this, but I've got an opportunity, I'm telling you, that can also happen in the ambit of design studio. Now, if you are coming to a very advanced situation where you can design different kinds of structure courses, which run for more than 1, 2, 3 years, not in elective, comprehensive different kind of structure courses, set of courses, part of programs, then the student gets that choice also. Because in addition to the fact of holding this indisciplined kind of situation, which structure is one subject, which hold them back. And some of the students enjoy doing that, contrary to common belief that nobody wants to do it. Now, what happens, it is very important on first-hand experience for the student to understand the rigor that is required to do engineering structure. It is not a game. So the feel of that is also acquired by the student while doing structures, and his mathematics or physics or chemistry, those qualifications which are mandatory to join the course, has some meaning in doing structures. And today, in today's ambit, some of these architects already become, leaning towards that kind of work. But then coming back to the opportunity of only BArch degree, they cannot go to engineering. So just connect all these things together and imagine the opportunity that the NEP concept offers, and imagine the opportunity of breaking out and creating different things. We should not start talking about this or that. It is a question of both. How to implement that is, we know how to implement that, and we are told that it is possible to be implemented. The problem is, which you will understand much better at the level of administrators, is administration. Now, I look at a scenario when today in a university there are programs, and in the programs there are courses. It's a tree structure. And we talk about cross-fertilization, you take elective from that program into that program, into that program, into that program, horizontals, right? So the definition of the university's academics is structured by university programs, so departments and courses, that way. And it is possible to imagine a scenario where the university's role will be slightly different, following from the HEI's concept, which they are not able to articulate fully themselves, is that there won't be any fixed programs. There would not be any fixed departments that will give shudders to the administrative system. There will be no departments. The administration will become a different kind of administration, a higher order of administration, where there are multiple possibilities of designing programs and chosen by the student. You may say it's madness, but that madness is what HCI is looking at. Therefore, there will be program coordinators and not heads of the departments sitting with their own administrative machinery as a burden. Heads of the department, whole administrative work culture of the university will be reorganized in a different kind of a setup, and with digitization is eminently possible. Now what happens to the student? That student now, well, if the demand side, supply side is offering that, can today or tomorrow choose a program, design a program for himself or herself. The university will in a position to approve that once the design is done. That intelligence the university have to acquire. So the program will be designed by the student by choosing courses and credits from various available sources. Now, where are the available sources? These students' available sources will be at one place under some university's provision of courses, and it will be other courses run in another university or in another country or another continent. Now, this university entity has to have that database and accreditation capability to be able to certify a student's choice of program. Madness. But before you reach that madness, maybe there are interim situations. So if that is the scenario, tomorrow somebody wants to do practice of architecture, well, PSSB is sitting there, in England ARB is sitting there. They'll tell university, go to that university which can give him all those courses there itself, or allow him to take one of those courses from somewhere, create that combination, and that gentleman then becomes ready to practice, ready to go to the PSSB and raise for practice. Imagining that there are many others who don't want to do that, then the open system will facilitate them. That's from the point of view of architecture. Then I have to address this teacher-centric, student-centric. See, the whole document is so concise, rather compressed in the realm of abstraction. It discusses from universe to toilet fittings, everything. So, and it's an elaborate version of this, which actually is a 800 and some page document earlier I've heard with the earlier committees and working for so many years. So in this compression, what happens, these catchphrases are becoming upfront, student-centric. Now, in my mind, very difficult to understand. As I explained, the student centrism will be there when the student chooses his or her combination of, let's say, the courses and creates a program. So that is student-centric. At another scale, student-centric is when the knowledge is delivered in a class or a combination. How the delivery is, how much is student-centric. Now, on that, there is a student centrism, whether the delivery system is able to understand each and every student's capability and intelligence and tailor-made the delivery accordingly. That's another student centric. But all this student centrism has to be for a long time under a structure of the faculty. It is still and going to be still faculty centric. Until and unless we come to a superbly digital condition, unless this faculty centrism is there, nobody will create a proper course. And if the faculty, one faculty is able to create or write down a very good course, that faculty's course will be chosen from many universities and many students and can be run online. So it is the quality of the faculty is very important. The quality of the faculty will be market tested. And university may certify this qualification, etc. Fine, all that is explained, but actually it is being market tested. And then when the open system comes and the chosen student is allowed to choose, it can choose anything. So the faculty's role is very important. The faculty is the nodal thing. And it takes a long time to take to go get past that. That is a very advanced situation. And when the faculty is a nodal thing, who is the faculty working for? There will be independent faculties who are working for themselves, and they have accreditation from their qualification from some HEI or universities. They will run their courses. It is up to the programming and the design of programs that can integrate those courses there lies the administration of the university. So university will be a manager at a different level. Along with that, there is research, and I won't talk too much about it right now. So those are my final thoughts. The student centrism versus teacher centrism need not be taken, cannot be taken so insipidly. It's difficult. Structured teaching, it cannot be this way or that way. Structured teaching is a very good example where there are two ends. One end can be practiced one side, another can be on one side. And it is the student then and the teacher's course which will determine what one is choosing and the overall ambit of the concept of the program that student is choosing. So that's a little bit I can say at the moment. I can wait for more reactions later. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Rajat, for your various mentioning about the different kind of implications in design education with reference to the NEP 2020 and role of PSSB and Council of Architecture and concept of liberal education. Now we'll move forward to our session 2, and our next speaker is Professor Tapan Chakravarti. Professor Tapan Chakravarti is a senior professor and consultant, School of Design, Pearl Academy, Delhi. He is also an adjunct professor, School of Design and School of Life, UPS, Dehradun. He has been professor and dean, Sushant School of Art and Architecture, Gurugram, and visiting faculty and external examiner in reputed institutions like SP Delhi, IIT Roorkee, Anand National University, and NEP, etc. Welcome, sir. I request you to please take over for session 2.
Thank you very much, Professor Rohi. I will share a little PowerPoint, and I hope it gets through. So obviously, when I'm going to share, my screen will be blocked by that. So I will probably inquire from you if it is visible, it's heard, or whatever.
Sure, sir.
Yeah. So let me just start. What's that? Am I allowed to share?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
You are a presenter, so you can do whatever you like.
Is anything visible?
Yeah, it's visible now, sir.
But the entire slides are visible, so.
Yes, yes. Okay, now it's okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. It's my privilege to be here amongst all of you. And I will, without much introduction, but there is a little introduction that I would like to put in before I move in, is that the earlier speaker, Rajat, who is a very close, very good, and a very old friend, once upon a time, or in fact many times, had said that, hey, Tapan, you are basically a born opposition. And that was probably because I've always tried to see what is the difficult part in any thought or an idea or a presentation. And that's a natural habit because maybe because I was born in a family of doctors, that let us try and look at what can go wrong so that we can probably make things right. There is nothing called absolute right and there is nothing called absolute wrong. But can we have our defenses working out? So my entire presentation will have that accent. It will indicate certain things which many might consider as being negative or being against, but that's not the main thing. It's basically that there are things where we slip, and I think that many situations in our country does actually go through that. So at a glance, when I look at NEP, it's a very comprehensive and a very competent document. It's very clear. The clarity and the currency is something that must be appreciated. It addresses very popular issues and concerns. I'm calling that popular because popular can be taken positively, popular can be taken negatively as well. I'm okay to, the way anybody wants to interpret it. For the last few years now, almost a decade, there has been these popular issues which are propping up here and there. Not that people may be doing very much about it and all that, but it's been there in the air. Most of the meetings, seminars is that it has been coming up, and somewhere or the other, this NEP document 2020 has been able to include all of them. And in fact, sometimes I believe that they include only all of them. Research focus, something I've been hearing for the last 10 years. At least every college, every senior person in a university or an institute has been talking about research focus, research focus, research focus. There has been various kinds of reasons given, but never really very convincing. Multidisciplinary is another one. Sounds extremely wonderful. Does it work or not work? Time shall talk about. Choice-based credit systems, exit opportunities that we are talking about. These are concerns as far as I'm concerned. Credit banking, I've never really understood totally, because coming from a architecture education background in a place like School of Planning and Architecture, I know people have gone away in the middle of the course or the program and have come back after 2 or 3 years and rejoined and continued. So something special maybe here we can talk about. Maybe it's a question of moving from one college to the other. Can I move from SPA to SET? Okay. Internationalization, another very popular word, term. Open and distance learning has been happening for quite some time. Very popular. Online, digital, high-tech, IT, AI, all over the net, everywhere. These words, these terms, these phrases are there. Learning outcomes, one has been listening, hearing, various kinds of reactions, acha hai, bura hai, whatever. Teacher training, one has been talking about in hushed tones. Nobody knows exactly how to go about it. Induct Indian culture, we have all talked. Promote Indian languages, well, why not? Keeping that in mind, the way I understand that policies should be reviewed at intervals. So NEP 2020, very welcome. Changes brought in to keep the system ticking and relevant is extremely important. So policies must be reviewed. New policies, revised policies must come in, and that's very important, right? Presence of terms and phrases like creative and problem solving in the main NEP document basically indicates that some kind of a horizontal coverage of pre-policy studies have been done, which is absolutely wow, right? Now, the way I have understood being in the society for a while now, that India is usually good with policies. The problem comes when implementation is there. Most of the policies get into trouble, drown halfway through, struggle, and still probably continue to survive because the implementation is poor, inadequate, faulty. And I think that's exactly where one should start looking at. Because we are at somewhere or the other, as a teacher, I am neither at the policy making stage nor I'm in the implementation stage. I'm actually in a situation where I'm supposed to follow instructions. I have to simply do because somebody else has said this is how to implement. And this is where I think we need to be careful about. I've experienced many policies which have been derailed or have been, defaulted simply because of lack of good, intelligent implementation. And that is what is the main core of my entire presentation. So practice, procedures, and people influence the predictions and the possibilities. We are right now predicting the NEP. NEP is there is a policy there. How it will span out is what we are trying to predict. Kya hoga isse, right? In architecture, education, design, anything, right? In the structure of the university, in the entire education thing, what will happen, student, teacher, it's all predictions. What are the possibilities and how do you predict it? But it basically depends on how we practice it, What are the procedures that we lay out? And who are the people who are involved? And with all due respects, it is here that the problem actually lies, right? It is again implementation and execution is impacted by bureaucracy and ineptitude. I repeat the second word, ineptitude. And this is due to the lack of capability and a sense of continuity. Very often, we induct new processes simply by picking it up and introducing it. Come, start. Is there a continuity from where we have you evolved into the new situation, or we simply try and pick it from somewhere else and bring it onto the table and say start operating? And then we struggle, then we hesitate, then we stumble, then we fall. Somebody might say that, the best way to learn swimming is to put somebody into the, deep end of the pool. I disagree. I disagree because all that guy will do, that person will do, is be able to survive. But will he become a swimmer? No way. For that, you need some training. For that, you need some preparation. You need some step-by-step of how you evolve into a swimmer. So there is a difference between a person who can survive in water and a person who is a swimmer. Now, one might say you are just, just trying to be unnecessarily, bulky khal, but well, let there be. Jab tak sar mein baal hai, khal bhi theek hai. So capability and continuity is something that is very often missing at the level of bureaucracy and at the level of implementation and execution. Do we unknowingly copy UK, US models very often? There is a fear that we do. Mixing up the 2 points called adulation for inspiration. We think that we are inspired by a US or a UK model. But because we are aspiring for the global, but do we have this tendency to overlook the dissimilar regional contexts? Is India going to be the same as US? Is it the same as US? Is that the aspiration eventually? Or that India can become also India in its own way? And somebody else, maybe the US might be able to get inspired, but maybe not. So what are the dissimilar contexts? Do we pick up a few things? And most of these points that I've written, research focus, multidisciplinary, choice-based, internationalization, all that, they all matter here. So if I just look into the NEP, what does it suggest? It talks about multidisciplinary. It basically means large campuses, a huge amount of capital expenditure. They're actually talking about higher education institutes to have minimum 3,000 capacity. Right? So let's not have small workshops. Let's have large factories. You have to have minimum 3,000 capacity. Otherwise, you are not even a college. That's the definition of higher education institute. Vocational courses to be additionally added, even in professional courses. So do we understand terminologies? Internationalization and online distant education and high-tech IT, AI, digital, foreign university campuses, capex, capex, capex. So does that mean that existing smaller campuses may vanish or diversify into something else, not even education? While proposed mega campuses may be distanced or secluded to trying to acquire large land parcels, because they have to have huge number of students, many different kinds of departments or whatever you want to call them, right? That kind of a land parcel will obviously be away from the main habitation areas, existing habitation areas. Management and infra of large mega campuses may encourage standardization, not may, they have to. If they have to manage, I'm not even talking administer, they just simply manage. If you want to manage and you have to lay down that infra, you cannot have too much of variations and variety, otherwise the things will again get derailed. So there will be it will encourage standardization of processes and practices, ironing out specific nuances. And that is the difference between, let us say, in a city like Delhi where I live. Once upon a time, there were these small sweet shops like, Ghante Walas. They are dead. It is the large conglomerates, Haldirams, where there is a standard food which is available from one part of the country to another part of the country. So whenever you go mega, standardization is absolute necessity. Architecture, design, education will correlate, coexist with multi-other disciplines. It's a very nice feeling, the impact of which needs COA's attention. I am sure this is being discussed at many levels, and something will come up. And I think my previous speaker also mentioned the role of COAs and all that. Need not go through it any further. What he's spoken of is absolutely correct. Faraway campuses with or without inbuilt accommodation. We have to also understand that making accommodation is again another capex and a continuous expenditure. So with or without inbuilt accommodation for students, staff, and faculty may affect, especially in architecture and design, the tutors with respect to full-time versus part-time. Who is going to come? You travel 40 kilometers for a visiting faculty appointment for one class a day or two classes maybe. Would you like to do that? Will that become a restriction because we can't have a smaller campus closer to the habitation area? So my little point, this will probably get repeated a number of times today. How much is equal to so much, and when is so much becoming too much? Next, suggests again, NEP, research, mandate, or focus in higher education, and the focus on PhD in education. On one hand, we are talking about a student-centric education. On the other time, we are talking about PhD. Lots to discuss on this. Research-intensive universities and teaching-intensive universities is a welcome differentiation in the NEP. It has not been done before in this country, and I'm so happy to see that at least it is mentioned, along with something called autonomous colleges. Unfortunately, we are not very sure how it will work out. Design or project consultancy for both institute and individual in an academic environment is missing as a viable academic alternative in the NEP. I had really expected that NEP might be able to throw some light on it. There are the vague mentions, but it doesn't come as a viable academic alternative. Full-time teachers, say in architecture, maybe 30 plus years of age by the time they finish their PhD, to enter at the entry level as an assistant professor, obviously without any industry exposure. Because by the time they will finish their graduation, their masters and their PhD, with sometimes a year or two here and there, trying to dabble in the industry more as an apprentice, actually now lands up, and because he's already past 30, he's not going to experiment anymore. He wants to settle down. And this person is going to be a full-time teacher without an industry exposure in principle. Structural revisions, redefining roles and definitions, I would say, redefining assistant professor, associate professor, professor with respect to research or teaching. And also the meanings of full-time versus part-time as well as related pay scale grades could have been deconstructed and bettered in this NEP. As of now, the NEP does not discuss really about these things. And I think that there is an issue. There is an issue because there are problems about who is a full-time and who is a part-time. Who is a permanent faculty? Somehow permanent faculty and full-time faculty is always equated and therefore to be counted as faculty. Anybody who is a part-time cannot be considered as permanent. Why can't somebody be permanent and part-time? Can I not teach in a college for 5 continuous years by only coming 2 days in a week? But no, part-time has to be temporary, has to have only a 1 semester or a 1 year contract, and therefore does not give that person, a teacher, that sense of surety of engagement. So full-time versus part-time. And the university is not interested, the college is not interested because the part-time is generally taken as an appendage, is not taken seriously as a possible core teacher, as well as related pay scales. This is where I'm talking about it. Why does the professor, who has to do a lot of research, has to have gray hair? It doesn't have to be. A young person can be a professor. While a lecturer or what we call associate or assistant professor or lecturer can actually be a person at 50 years age and still wants to primarily be in the classroom and spend less time in trying to write papers in journals. But can that person earn at the age of that 50 or 55 what he is in, and not saying that no, if you are a lecturer, you're supposed to be earning at the age of 25, even if you are 55. So these kinds of things, I think it's time to deconstruct these things, and I wish somehow NEP would would have taken that into account, and I'm missing that seriously. Architecture design needs some industry experience and regular industry exposure as well, if possible, more than typical academic research. And I'm talking about typical academic research. I'm seeing what's happening in typical. So I think the meaning of the word academic research could have been explained a bit better. That just simply dishing out papers every 1 month, because you need to cover at least 3 or 4 or 2, whatever, in your semester, just to be able to tick mark something at the time when your assessment of the teacher will happen at the end of the year, that how well you have fared, that becoming more important than somebody coming and saying that, look, I managed to do an extension of a house, 1 room on the first floor of an existing house nearby my college. That will not be taken as a publication until and unless you write about it. Why can't that 1 room physically existing be called a publication of an entire design process, which might actually be much more beneficial? I'm just using the word, using it in architecture. I think it happens it's necessary in design, it's necessary in art. It can actually be necessary in many places, including law. Well, law is not under NEP anyways. But so rather than, the next point is that rather than the universities may be research intensive or teaching intensive, can it be also at the level of departments and courses and disciplines? So what happens now that in a multidisciplinary university, somewhere at the upper level, let's say, the university decide that I'm going to have a research-based university. And because multidisciplinary, let us say, architecture department or say product design department has to be part of that university, because the university is research-based, everybody here has to do research. Now, is it going to be effective for my education in this kind of a course or this kind of a program? Not known. So maybe the universities also need to do that, because, okay, fine, the research intensive universities will mean that their basic survival revenue comes from research. Teaching intensive universities will mean that their basic revenue comes from teaching, from the fees of the students. There is a major difference there. How does that pan out at the level of the courses and all that needs to be thrashed out? Is it possible or not possible? I am nobody to say. I haven't spent time doing all these kinds of deductions. But these are the points which can be identified to be able to further deliberate upon. And once again, here too, how much is equal to so much, and when is so much going to become too much? The third point that was coming interesting to my mind was that, this, as we see, 3 years, 4 years bachelor's degree, 1 year, 2 year master's degree. Why 1 year, 2 year master's degree? If you have 4 years of bachelor, you could therefore opt for a 1 year master's. If you have done a 3 years bachelor's, you can opt for a 2 years master's, and therefore eventually total 5 number of years, combination options, which is there in the NEP. Similarly, exit options, end of first year certificate, end of 2 years diploma, end of 3 or the third or the 4th year degree within the bachelor's program. Overlap options, as I said, 4 years bachelor's gets equated. So the 4th year of 4 years bachelor's is going to be equated to the first year of the 2 years master's. Now, let's say, if the bachelor's degree and the master's degree, does it have to be completely linear in connection? People do diversify. How does this happen? Are we getting again into more modular situations? 4th year of a 4th year bachelor's is equal to the first year of the second master's. Equated, the parity versus similarity are things which need to be thrashed out once more. And have we thrashed it out while we are creating the policy? Very interesting point now here. School education in NEP 20, interestingly, combines fragmented years into cohesive blocks. The first block is 5 years, entire 5 years of a very small child. Then the next block is 3 years. Then the next block is 3, and the last block is 4 years. Well, frankly speaking, even the first 5 years has been in the document understood as 2 plus 3. And the last 4 years is again given as 2 plus 2. That is the 9th, 10th, and the 11th, 12th. But the minimum block is 2 years. Higher education in NEP 20 intriguingly breaks down cohesive blocks in higher education, breaks down the cohesive blocks into fragmented years. The bachelor's degree is actually 1 plus 1 plus 1. The master's is again 1 plus 1. It's not a block of 5 or a block of 4. So in the school education, there are blocks. There is a certain amount of cohesive blocks that have been come up there. You put few years together into a larger concept. In a bachelor's thing, you have broken it down because we have to basically, exit policies. 1 year certificate, 2 years diploma, which has to maybe, correlate with the diploma in a polytechnic, which might now become 2 years, but okay, fine. So one may not be able to continue a 3-year agenda, even in a 5 years course. The blocking has become equal to 2 semesters, right? This is all to facilitate the various kinds of options and the various kind of combos that we are talking about. So architecture or design courses may fragment into yearly or 2 semester portions to align with the certificate diploma degrees as well as bachelor's and master's combined degrees to become what we claim as student learner friendly, but not necessarily discipline or course friendly, enforcing certain very, very modular type of standardization. Now, how much of it is so much, and when will so much become too much? So coming to the end, this is what was my first slide when I said comprehensive and competent, having clarity and currency, and the various kinds of popular issues which have been happily incorporated in the NEP. Are they thrashed out enough? Or we are simply hoping that things will pan out on their own? Multidisciplinary vocation, international culture, research, PhD teaching, high-tech, IT, AI, digital, certificates, credits, exits, and in my understand, the difference between policy and practice. So with this, how much is equal to so much, and when is so much is equal to too much? Thank you for your patience. This is where I would like to end.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Tapan sir. Very nicely pointed out the issues related to NEP and the ground realities. The points you have, the comments you have mentioned in your presentation, it's very near to ground. And I think that before going for the implementation of NEP, it is very much needed that we should redesign the program first. Then we should take care of this. So thanks again. Now coming to our session 3, our next presenter is Professor Paresh Chaudhary. Professor Paresh Chaudhary is a recipient of India's Best Design Project Award by Pool Magazine in 2020. He is the founder of Odisha Design Council and also the managing chairman of ODC. He has been professor and head National Institute of Design, Vijayawada, and professor and head School of Graphic Design, DSK International Campus, Coventry University, UK. He is founder and principal designer for Lemon Tea Design, New Delhi, and he has been senior consultant to various ad agencies like Leo Burnett, McCann Erickson, JWT, Bates, Y&R, etc. Welcome, sir. I request you to please take over for session 3. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Jitendra. Thank you for a wonderful introduction. And yeah, just a minute. Thank you very much to DIT giving me this opportunity. I'm really honored to be part of this, kind of symposium discussing about a very important topic. Okay, so let me jump into my presentation straightway. Okay. Yeah, first of all, actually, I'm really impressed with, the presentation of Professor Tapan Chakrabarty. The way, the big question is the implementation or not implementation. The policy, like a lot of things are happening on paper, but it's a rare thing and it's very difficult to implement, and nobody is monitoring. And another point actually I liked about his speech, bureaucracy, because sometimes they copying and then they call it inspiring, but directly copying without considering the local kind of environment, ecosystem, and local user of people. Okay, so my presentation is all about design education. I will focus on, and since I'm a designer, especially a visual communication designer, so my presentation will be a little full of visuals. Okay, not text or not technical words. So more of. Okay, and then yeah, I will talk about kind of this NEP 2020. Basically, I just found, so there is nowhere they kind of use like a term like a design or something specifically. They focus on design, but in general, a lot of components they have mentioned. It's like a more of like it, we are familiar in design education, so a lot of terminology, a lot of points are very friendly. We have been using actually in fact, but maybe like after implication, we have to ensure like we have to maybe double it in terms of kind of implications. Okay, so design, as I said, so I'm going to focus on design education. So my first, I just picked one point. It's a very important point: ethics and human and constitutional values, because that is the kind of design thinking is the first point, and a lot of people, in general, also outside the campus, in the general lifestyle. So they don't know actually. So basically, this NEP 2020 is not about meant for only design college or university. It is going to be the entire education system. Starting from the kind of play schools to the post graduation, whatever. But the general people that the design thinking actually they are missing. So a lot of in this NEP actually they haven't used this design thinking, but a lot of points like a focus on the design thinking kind of principles. Actually, they need to general people should know it, should learn it. If it is going to be really is going to be implemented from the scratch level, the grassroots level, then obviously like the common man will be kind of aware of and they will implement this thing. Okay, so yeah, so this point actually basically focusing on empathy, respect for others, cleanness, courtesy, democratic spirit of service, respect for property. Okay, so respect for others. So I'm just this is something I'm just randomly picked, day-to-day life, pictures. We normally in India, we every day we are like a kind of coming across. So people actually there have a tendency, they park their motorcycle in a diagonal way, and they don't care about it. It may create hurdles or create trouble for others. They don't care about. So to me actually there's like they're lacking of the design, like in our term they're kind of lacking design thinking sense. Okay, so I'm just thinking like this is the normal scenario, and see like how much blockage they are doing day to day life. So 30%, almost like approximately 30-40% they are blocking the road. And then this is, I'm just clicking the picture from my own vehicle, in my own point of view. So just see like such a like kind of like it also slow down the economy. It slowed down the entire life, entire urban life circle. So that is why, so this is actually, yeah. So this picture is not actually the kind of very complex, but sometimes it like creates a really problem. So that is why it like a kind of it change the people's mind, and the what positive mindset people are going for some work or some client meeting or some some important things, important projects they are going to do, and this kind of thing they're facing everyday life, and how their work efficiency will obviously getting reduced. Okay, so the example shows how the general people lack of design thinking or just lack of common sense, which creates trouble for other people using the same public space. This creates massive hurdles for economic growth. As I mentioned, can you imagine how much time and work efficiency get affected by this kind of behavior? That is why design thinking is very for everyone to empathy with other people or other co-user existing in the same ecosystem. Okay, I'm talking about this, the policy makers, bureaucracy. They normally like copy, whatever the vendors and all, they copy from West, US or UK and implement. They don't care, like, to like a show of, to common man or their superior. So, see, like what a glossy, what a, beautiful structure we made it, in the public space. This is the bus stop actually, bus commuter space. I'm not an architect, but I have, like, the design from design principles, design sense. So I can imagine, like, what a bad design is this, because there's,
Professor Chaudhary, there is no presentation. We can only see you.
Oh, sorry.
Yes, sir.
Oh no.
Up until now, we have not seen anything.
Oh no.
We have seen one slide called Kolkata Tram Thesis.
Yeah.
No. That was another. That was my mistake. I thought that something else. Why can't I see? So it was some students' work. That is not
okay. That is your turn.
Okay,
We haven't seen any slide from you, Professor Chaudhary.
Yes.
Oh no. Sorry. Just a minute. Yeah.
Calcutta Tram. I was so excited.
Yeah, I thought that was his.
I just sat straight. Then.
Okay. I'm just running through those images. Okay. So this was my. I started with this, like these pictures. The way people, like, park their two-wheelers and blocking those, the entire, kind of moments in a day-to-day life. It hampers the entire, what do you call, economy, you can say, slow down. So this is like a blockage happening, this is I just made out of my own picture. So like a 30%, 40% that creating a blockage on the road, on the passage, in the narrow lanes of India, typical. And the pictures are not like that much complex, but you can imagine. So every day, everybody, we are facing. Okay. So, and here I was here. And now everything is okay. The slides are visible.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what actually the bus actually I picked from my own city. Bhubaneswar is one of the smart cities is being considered. And recently, the moment I saw it, is taking so much space. And one hand, we are talking about sustainability and other things, but the one hand is taking so much space. And, so I just analyze, from our, like, the way we do checklist, the designer's point of view. So there is no kind of, they have not considered the way the components, elderly user accessibility, disabled accessibility, human safety, ergonomic, nothing is considered. And they say, like, it's a beautiful design because of this glossy look, So, and the other hand, like the signage system, this is also, same from the same city. Really, it's like, from a designing sense point of view, so I can see is such a badly designed, because that is the thing, like that NEP 2020 whatever has to applied from the grassroots. Those, like a bureaucrats, something they should. It's not like this. We will talk about this NEPs, how it will be implicated in design or architecture, education, everywhere. They must learn things. Look at the information, the placement, the visual hierarchy, and the eye level, and then ergonomics is a play area, kids play area. Look at the low height, it may cause any like a fatal injury to the kids. And look at this, all those corners and all the material, the color also. Looking at this fluorescent green, it hampers the entire environment. So that is, the other hand, the city, this traffic post, look at the corners and all. Normally, like, it should be circular, rounded, because the vehicle has to move around. Yeah, it is still there. This is not like old, the recent one. I have taken pictures to give examples how we are lacking that education system. Okay, and this is the since I'm a communication designer, so looking at this, in Puri, they improved, they converted into, they call it global heritage city. And look at the sign. The sign is they forcefully they change all those shopkeepers signage into one standard look. Okay, standardized look. But in other hand, they're creating major problem because it looks so same alike. And for a visitor from an outsider, difficult to spot, to reach out their intended destinations, because the bank, ATM, mithai shop or cloth shop looks all same. They have to read all the way, the 50 signboard they have to. So what is the that's why they are kind of missing that sense, that kind of education. So NEP lays particular emphasis on the development of the creative potential.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you, sir. I'm a heritage problem. This is because of Jaipur becoming a heritage city. Everything has to become like Jaipur. Therefore, they have done this.
Okay, so they're copying each other. Maybe.
Yeah, Jaipur has this uniform signboards, so that is heritage. Therefore, Bhubaneswar should also have uniform signboards.
Yeah, uniform is one hand, but then other some they should have some solution how people should easily can spot their intended shops or destinations. Yeah. So design actually they has to design process.
Design, design has to be contextual.
All the aspects, yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're trying to say, that it is being implanted from one place to another without any thought given to it.
Yes. So yeah. So NEP lays particular emphasis on development of the creative potential of each individual, which is good, sounds good. Okay, so critical thinking and problem solving, which is more like we designers we have been using and we have been talking about. Okay, so I'm just showing another example. This is an old thermometer. We all like a very iconic thermometer, iconic product. Is a medical device. You can say health related. It's a very iconic, and nobody it's still there in everybody's mind. In my generation especially. So it's a beautiful product because it's like iconic, because there was no other alternative. So very good in accuracy in terms of functionality or the result, but it's not user. I'm just giving example, not user friendly. Uncomfortable to use, delicate to handle, not easy to locate, difficult to read. Okay, so not user friendly because such a needle kind of thing is a pointer, and it's people have to, your parents, your doctor, if you remember when you were a child and people were kind of forcing you, just open your mouth, they're supposed to insert it. So that is why this is it's not a friendly product. It's no matter whether it's a iconic or something, it's a health saving, like a life saving product, whatever you call it. But I'm just giving the experience, the user experience point of view. Okay, so then also the next is they introduced the modern digital reading, kind of, but then it has the same pointer. Why? Because it has to be inserted into your mouth. Why it should be like a pointed? Why not should be something different shape? Why not I was thinking, it not user friendly. Yeah, it's a lot of things actually they solved. They address a lot of problems, but still I can say it's still not a user friendly product. But nowadays they have something from a distance they can measure it. This touchless during this Corona time. So my concern is this: why it should be pointed? Why it should be like a sharp point? Like a needle. So people they normally when design earlier, they don't think about who is the end user basically. In the medical scenario or like a kind of hospital scenario, like a lot of people are involved: doctor, nurse, attendant, patient, and also salesman, everybody. But normally the thermometer, maybe they must have considered doctor point of view, but doctor is not a user, doctor not an end user. User is a patient. That's why. So we are lacking some kind of education, the system or whatever. So we need to ensure everybody should be educated, So critical thinking and problem solving, but also social, ethical, and emotional capacities and dispositions. Okay, so I'm giving example. This like a ATM machine actually. So let's understand for the people, like it's not like who is going to withdraw money. ATM is meant for, like we have to design that way. So we have to design like the whole the stakeholders who are involved. Like it could be security, it could be a disabled person, it could be a person who is passing by, entire, even like a thief, we have to also consider he is also one of the stakeholders. So the entire ecosystem we have to consider when we design. Okay, so the teacher, okay, in the NEP 2020, so it's written, that's a good point I noticed. The teacher must be at the center of the fundamental reforms in the education system. Because in my this thing earlier colleagues they have presented, they talk about, so normally like we all talk about like student centric that way, so we are being overshadowed, kind of our teachers are being neglected, because teacher actually we will focus on the teacher, the faculty, and then everything will be fall in place, so that is I've been nobody, I'm being a teacher, I worked almost like 15 years I taught in various institute, but still whatever they give, whatever kind of attention to teachers not good enough, because if teacher will be happy, then everything, the entire ecosystem, entire environment, students, every result, everything, kind of everything will fall in place, I believe. The new education policy must help re-establish teachers at all levels as the most respected and essential members of our society, which is totally I agree with that. So recognizing, identifying, and fostering the unique capabilities of each student by sensitizing teachers as well as parents to promote each student's holistic development in both academic and non-academic spheres. Okay. So no hard separations between arts and sciences as the unique points, these are the unique points of NEP 2020. So between curricular and extracurricular activities, between vocational and academic streams, etc., in order to eliminate harmful hierarchies among and silos between different areas of learning. That's a good point, actually. Okay. So we have to give a lot of freedom, like to teachers and to to our students. So there should not be, though like design education, we normally that liberty, we don't have a textbook, especially in design education. So a lot of times they should, like whatever they feel like, let them do initially, explore, kind of in terms of using their aesthetic sense, art sense, whatever material explorations, whatever. But at the same time, there is a project that should be, some objectives, so they should achieve, no matter whether they're exploring something, in some stages, that's okay. So multidisciplinarily, as is mentioned, multidisciplinary, everybody like we have been talking about, and holistic education in order to ensure the unity and integrity of all knowledge. That is very important in design education. So as Professor Chabi mentioned, so a lot of open electives and all we have to introduce. It's not like a in campus, maybe some kind of open elective outside. It could be merged with study tour or something. Maybe attending some seminars, conference, design festivals. Nowadays, India, we are having like a lot of design festivals in all cities. It's a good thing, actually. We should encourage students, they should go and participate there, to gain knowledge. So respect for diversity and respect for the local context in all curriculum. So now that like I was being a faculty, so I've been noticing, like students nowadays, the youngsters, they're forgetting about their roots, their culture. So we have to, being like a teacher, being faculty, we should ensure, we should motivate them to look at our crafts and culture, villages, our environment, our folks, tribals. So there's a lot, you never know, like such a huge like areas, to get inspired. And maybe we should introduce a lot of what you call craft documentation tours or whatever. And also we have to organize some kind of live demo in campus, or maybe we can send students to visit all those craft villages and experience and get associated with the culture, and spend some time with the local artisans and learn from them. So environment education should also should include climate change, pollution, waste management, sanitation, biodiversity, and sustainable. Yeah, because that's also, you never know, like a lot of design opportunity we can explore, we can discover, and also agriculture in this that's also be connected to this this program. So this is what actually like in the Odyssey. Let me also reveal that also as part of this towards the end of my presentation. So this design week, Odisha is such a it's a very rich in culture, but in terms of modern design, it is that's why it is missing. So there's no innovation or something. So that's why one hand they're strong in one side and other side they're weak. So that's to promote design, modern design ideology, they're thinking. So we basically, I initiated this design week through this Odisha Design Council in Bhubaneswar in coming months in December. So it's a great exposure to for students. They can be part of this, focusing that theme is culturally connected. They can learn a lot. So culturally connected. Yeah, and that Odisha Design Week, there were a lot of things actually what this NEP mentioned. So seminar curated, beyond this campus, outside of the campus, workshops with eco retreats, guided tours, demos, exhibition stalls, crafts and textiles, academic counseling, buying and selling, whatever, and installation, graffiti, designers, nights, networking, and the local cuisines. So this art integrated also, there's another point I found in NEP. Art integrated approach will strengthen the linkage between education and culture. So those are people who can manage to, or maybe as part of the course, if they can visit to various crafts villages, spend some time, stay with them, because a lot of craft villages, they have guest houses, so government kind of establish some guest houses, hostels and all nearby, and they can enjoy live demo, they can see and learn, and you never know, it can be they can implement those things, incorporate those things in their design process. Thank you very much. Yeah, this is the Odisha Design Council. I'm just running it for a bigger cause, and we are going to organize Odisha Design Week. So hopefully see you, all of you there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for this nice presentation and quoting the practical situations in your presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So we will now move to our next agenda, that is panel discussion, in which Professor Chavi Mishra ma'am will chair the panel, and all the experts will be there. So after the panel discussion, we'll take the question Q&A, and the participants can post the question in the chat box. I would like to request all the experts, as well as Professor Chavi Mishra ma'am, to please initiate for the panel discussion.
Thank you, Jitendra. Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. It was very nice to see the work of design in Orissa, where I'm very familiar with. So it was very nice to see the practical aspects of design thinking and what you think that needs to be incorporated in design education.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
And you raised a very important question that the NEP says needs to be student-centric. It also needs to be teacher-centric. So how does it all come together? And then what does one do, to make things effective? And Tapan, you have made my mind reel now. I don't know. Your presentation has left me with so many thoughts that none of these panel discussions would, go anywhere near, ending it or completing it, or at least it will be a start. Okay, the first question, I think what I would say that this panel discussion, we can sort of wind up with the question answer session. What do you say? I mean, we can all discuss and then also answer the questions.
Yes.
We can just combine it.
Yes, yes. Good idea.
So Jiten, did you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think we'll. So the first question was to me. What teaching strategies should we adopt in order to cater the implications of NEP in architecture and design education? Wow, that's a huge question. That's the whole NEP actually. So that is what we are all discussing, and I won't be able to answer this question pinpointedly. All I can say that after hearing the discussions and reading the NEP, what I feel there should be more number of teachers with varied expertise. So, like a pool, like a bank of teachers, I feel, who will cross-teach. If at all, we all have to become interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary. And the teachers should also, it's not that, okay, this is your program and then you teach interior design, you teach architecture, you teach UX design, you teach it all. We cannot do that anymore. We have to have specialized teachers for all programs. And we also have to have teachers who give teachers enough time to develop their own course. I think looking at NEP, they can develop their own course with the feedback of students. So it is going to take time. It has to be tested. It has to be time tested. So very small baby steps need to be taken. Is all I can say. It's not just we just can't overnight change the whole syllabus and the system and hire people and run it. So step by step. The second question is again to me: is our industry prepared to employ graduates out of NEP? Does multiple exits from the course alleviate the quality of education there? So these are two questions, I guess. Industry is ready to employ graduates out of NEP. Well, the industry will also change. Everything will evolve together. It is not one thing remaining the same and then education going forward. So industry is going to absorb the products, obviously, and the vice versa. Our products, our graduates have to comply with the industries. That is the whole idea of education. So industry will evolve with our architecture education. Does multiple exit from the course alleviate the quality of education? Well, that is a huge question for me, and I personally feel no. I think it will cater to skill development aspects of government when they're looking for, say, people with certain skills. They can exit out. Supposing I'm studying architecture and at the end of first or second year, I am more of a I'm not for architecture. I can only draft. So then you can quit and become that person, or you can quit with whatever skills you've learned. So I don't think it is a good idea at this point. Before we completely design and program our syllabus. Our syllabus has to be completely revamped for this. So we can clearly say by first year you learn a certain amount of skills, a certain set of skills. By second year you learn this, third year you learn this. And by first year or second year, if you learn this, then you can only be employed in certain sectors. So all that has to be worked out. The third question is to Rajat. Would implications of NEP help encourage architectural education to economically backward sections of society?
Implication of NEP or introduction of NEP?
It's written implications, but I guess introduction is what? Because implications means it is already in place, right?
Well, just read out the question again.
Would implications of NEP 2020 help encourage architecture education for economically backward sections of society? I guess how is it going to help them is what is the question.
Well, short answer, see, the NEP should be taken as a concept, and depends on how you interpret it. Now, it's a very important question. Sorry, I'll speak too much. I see there are three levels. One is the academic level, academics, and there is a profession, and there is vocation, right? So, if you look from top down, today there is more and more awareness again about vocational education. Vocational education is a level where it hopes to reach out to a lower or distant parts of the society, remote parts of the society, may match that idea where vocational education may reach. Now, it's just like the language issue. The language, local language is also like it should reach people and it should make education more accessible. So if the curriculum, one can see that there is a higher academic dimension, research of various kinds, doctorates, then there is a professional dimension, and there is a vocational dimension. Now, the vocational dimension of teaching, which is closer to people who can afford it, will have a different way of structuring it, the combinations of courses, etc., and application-oriented and taking models of certain kind. Agar ye koi kar sakta hai, so NEP is open for that. Today, I see Delhi state, Delhi government has started a skill university separately. In the last few years, they were trying to do vocational courses, Bachelor of Vocation, Master. Now the problem, and there is a conflict. Conflict is the top-down thinks that you make this accessible to people, but the mindset in the country is opposite. People want to climb upwards. So given a chance, they'll cross vocation and join profession for better quality of life or moving to cities. So there is a head-on collision between the two ideas. So आपको किसी को mobile repairing class करने के लिए सिखाना है, we had a BPVOC course for that. Nobody joined that. Now, how to make it reach? It is now placed as an open thing. You can look at it and take the advantage of that and make your system support it. Now, the implications are very different, cost implications. For example, where I work in is a government university, but it exactly runs like a private university, a self-financing government university. Now, all this exit policy and various levels are quite often practically not affordable by a scale of economy. To let people go away and exit, now, it will help the sector that you're talking about, provided it reaches and then gives the people who take it an upward mobility. नहीं तो नहीं help करेगा. और ये काम university, I'm sorry, the university is aimed, or any HEI is aimed at becoming a huge thing. ये 3,000 की जो number है, what Tapan sir is saying is a campus issue and criticized, but it need not be a campus issue, and it just need not be a campus issue. And in front of my eyes, many universities are running in Delhi. Before they get the campus, they're already running, and they have affiliated colleges, etc. So the networking is very important. And now, if the vocational courses, जो भी होता है, they are very bad and insipid because they are compartmentalized downward. तो उसमें जो quality लाना है, उसके लिए you need a vertical integration. Some teacher who has a research-oriented knowledge should be able to work with the teacher who is in vocational training and increase the quality of that. So होगा, जरूर हो सकता है. Thanks.
I guess also, like, if I can come in a little bit more to it, I guess it also helps socially, economically backward section of the students' population if they want only skill development, and they can get out after 1 or 2 years of education and have certain skill to do certain jobs.
See, you got to think of these things very slowly, very slowly. You sometimes sound paternalistic. I mean, we're trying to help them by teaching. Another forum will say we are not understanding their traditional skills. Yeah, if you want to understand their traditional skills, then you cannot afford to teach them new mechanical skills. Now, unless you teach them new mechanical skills, they don't get urban jobs. It's a difficult thing. But what the university can do is continuously create various combinations, make them available from the supply side. Various combinations, as much as possible, not curtailing, specialization must be created for resolution of knowledge, but combination के possibility रखना पड़ेगा. जितना आप उसको straight jacket करोगे, वो straight jacket की बात करता है, तो वो straight jacketing को seriously लेते हो for your operational, bureaucratic and administrative advantage, तो नहीं हो पाएगा, right? And I have stopped, blaming bureaucracy because I've been working with as I can see, coming from a private sector to a public sector, provision systems are there. It is a human element which creates the problem. The structure that we work in government system, before you criticize the system, 90% the problem is the human element. It is not the system. It is the inability to take decisions, it is reluctance to take discretionary decisions. वो नहीं करेंगे, system पे छोड़ेंगे. It's a human problem. That is not the problem. Even in the corporate system. Yeah, it is a human problem. And how you handle that human problem? So if somebody says, oh, I teach only this, I don't teach this, those kind of problems. Also, the issue of specialization. I think you pointed out rightly. I foresee this way. The two centers, teacher and student. What is likely to happen and should happen, all those who teach, now most of us get away with this generalist situation. ये भी है, वो भी है, वो भी है, वो भी है. कुछ भी पढ़ा दें. And we are going through that for a long time. But the situation will be there when your course will be in market. Your university will protect you. They will suggest and tell students to take your course, and then they will keep you if you have a good course. And if it is a good course, then somebody else will also take it. So it is incumbent upon the teacher to develop a good course, and that good course needs to have properly research and proper knowledge and everything. अगर वो नहीं होगा, तो जरूरी है. But if it leads to compartmental, ऐसा हो गया तो let us make a separate specialist discipline department like that. That is the wrong direction possibly, right? And it's horizontally this problem is there, and vertically also there. The technical colleges, the diploma courses. India has a large network of diploma institutions, right? Those diploma institutions fails because two ways. The diploma institution, the target group of the diploma education, most of them, the target group actually is determined by their social and economic sort of position. कि वहाँ ये होगा. But that very target group actually wants to move upward. So इसलिए vocation में BVoc के बाद MVoc हो गया, MVoc के बाद PhD भी होगा वहाँ पर. Such contradictions arise.
Yeah, thank you, Rajat. The next question is also to Rajat. With the coming of more liberal education because of NEP 2020, affects creative aptitude and other skills. No, is creative aptitude and other skills required for architecture education? I don't understand this question. With the coming of more liberal education because of NEP 2020, would it affect creative aptitude and other skills required for architecture education? Okay, got it.
I can guess what he's asking. Creative skills are important. Whoever is asking must be holding it as high esteem. Creative skills are important. So NEP education is a huge thing. Creative skills को कुछ भी मना नहीं है क्या NEP? Everything is there. Now the participant, the protagonist has to decide where a person has to focus, and that is where one will imagine creative skill. If you mean by creative skill that capacity of design, or you mean by drafting or software at that kind of level, it is one issue. Skill. You can say drafting is skill. You can say design is a skill. You can say doing research is also skill. So creativity is everywhere. तो आपके मन में कौन सी creativity है? जो भी है वो हो सकता है. Nothing is deterred. It can happen. It has to match the system which provides that, has to create a viable situation for that to happen.
And the next question, thank you, Rajat. The next question is for Tapan. If we overlook the models followed across globe and give more priority to regional contexts, are we prepared for international standards? What are your views?
Well, there is a difference between standards and processes. So international standard, and I don't know exactly who has defined this standard. Right now, I know that there is an international standard of a length called meter. Right? But I do not know what is an international standard. So does that mean that anything automatically that US or UK does as a performance becomes the benchmark as international standard is something which I am not very comfortable about, not because I am a nationalist or whatever, but I don't think that's the way you can make a measurement anyways. There is no such standard understood. One. Second, the standard is probably more global. Internationalization of our education system as per NEP. If you read the text, it talks more about things like exchange programs and stuff like that. Now, is it that there should be a larger horizon of knowledge because we are exchanging students, teachers, this and that? So I mean, I'm living within the cocoon of, let us say, Delhi or India or whatever. It can be expanded to Berlin or wherever. Or is it basically trying to say that no, we need to exchange because the other country is better, and therefore by infusing a few of that, I am going to become better? Is that what? It's not very clear, but my experience would say that whenever, I still teach in a college or in an academy where these foreign exchange programs are very, very big, sort of sales points. I've generally found that our students are all lining up outside the door that next semester there is an exchange program option. Can I? No, I have some, if I have 30 people in my class, I find 20 of them ready to go for an exchange program. But they are not able to go because nobody from the other side wants to come to me. I don't think that when my students went for that exchange program, they came back with some absolutely brilliant understanding, learning, knowledge as far as the subject or the course or the program is concerned. They definitely came back and said, we saw some very interesting, buildings in the city. That's okay. That you will go, even if I go to Kerala, I will see some very interesting buildings which I have never seen in Delhi. But have they come back with a better understanding of architecture or design or whatever course? I'm not very clear. But there is a demand to go abroad from Indian side for reasons which are other than education. The reasons of standards and the educations are very often given as an excuse to be able to go. A lot of people are also going abroad for education because they want to stay back. And they want to find some possibilities. Few people do come back. I'm not saying so, but a lot have that aspiration. So when we are talking about these benchmarks and internationalization and many other things, we basically what I was trying to bring out, and I know that we had just a 25-minute or something like that. We can't talk about it. I think, have we thought it through? Have we thought it through when we say internationalizing our education system? What does it really mean? Is it just a question of having some linkages and here, there? You don't need a policy for that. I'm sure colleges are already doing, many of them are doing, interacting with other universities across, across the seas. And they are having exchange programs and all that. It doesn't have to be a policy. There's nothing big deal about it. But if there is something big deal about it, what is the core reason for it is not really, really clear. So I think that these are the things which in my opinion are important. We can create our own benchmark. Why can't that be appreciated in the international market? That benchmark. This is it. This is what I am teaching. And if somebody finds value in it. So again, this whole thing about one benchmark, the word that I have used in my in my presentation often was this peculiar thing about standardization. Personally, personally and very personally, I do not appreciate standardization at all, because it puts everybody into one packet or one basket. It just cannot be. There is, I mean, my country is about, diversity. And I think the diversity is not just a question of the color and the language we speak, is what we do. There was nobody who said that, the Kanjivaram sari and the Banarsi sari, are they at the same standard? Who created that standard? Somebody sitting in Ujjain? No. Each one of them, in their own particular place, tried to achieve better and better and better. And if somebody other outside appreciated that as good, that's enough. This standardization is such an industrial, it is an industrial product, basically for sales and marketing, that my stuff, that what I manufacture is of a standard, and what you are may not be. This whole thing is a very different reason. Let me just have in my country, from my understanding, as good an education as I can provide, design, and practice. So that will be my reaction to your question. I may not have answered it the way you would have wished it to, but this is my outlook. Yes, thank you.
You are mute.
Ma'am, you are not audible.
Thank you, Tapan. The second question is also for Tapan. What would be the framework for equating practical experience against research? What does it mean? What could be the framework for equating practical experience against research? Okay.
There is no framework in this. The point is that what do I need? It's a very simple, straightforward thing about what is required. What I try to give as an example is that I am teaching in architecture college, which has a certain vocational, flavor to it, and that is why we say that, okay, fine, let us see, can we? A student has to go through a certain amount of clarity about, let us say, building construction and materials. Now, in that, there is a certain aspect of research. Definitely, we can go and find out about materials, think in history, how construction has developed, evolved, and all that. There is a certain, now, is that research? A background study, getting to know about myself a little bit from before, is that really research? Now, in my opinion, it can be called research. But unfortunately, the moment I use the word research in an academic environment, it starts having a completely different agenda. It has to finally get converted into some kind of a paper or some kind of a publication. While if I'm just going ahead and doing a survey in the market to find out what kind of wood is available, let us say in Dehradun, is that a research? It's not an academic research.
Sir,
but it is still a research which is there. So what I'm trying to say is that what is required in any kind of a course or a academic program, is that requirement being addressed by the person or whom we call the teacher, who is supposed to be there to help the youngster as a student who wants to acquire that expertise, let us say architecture, by being in the college or being in the department for 5 years? Are we able to put that in? Now, if every teacher is supposed to be basically sitting down and fact-finding, writing with the kind of structure that we call academic research, if that becomes the tick mark, because at the end of the day, it is that which is unfortunately put as the tick mark. Will that answer the requirements of all the various things that we are actually putting as a necessary experience for a student of architecture? If that is necessary, if all that is being put there, I will say, okay, go ahead, let that be the qualification criteria. But if that is not and then we put the other one as a qualification criteria, am I being fair? Am I being fair to this entire process of education in architecture, or education somewhere else, or education in some other subject, but education thereof? So that debate. So what is now happening is that we are prescribing certain things as a prescription which has the tendency to be understood as mandatory for all. On one hand, we're talking multidisciplinary, but we are somewhere not able to make ourselves, our thoughts flexible to fit that multidisciplinary. If each, why do we need to be multidisciplinary? Is each discipline having its own nuances, own character, own needs, requirements, flavor, and therefore the teacher involved with that discipline is part of that character, flavor, or there we want everybody to have a similar kind of label, and then we are. So I think that this contradicts, and this contradicts me, in my opinion, simply because it's not being debated and thrashed through. We are copying things, and we are adulating certain things which are existing somewhere, and we are simply want to take that in our own home, and not really. We talk about critical thinking, develop karna hai, and we are not thinking critically anyways. So that's what my reaction will be to that point which has been raised. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. The next question is to Professor Chaudhary. What policies or reforms can be incorporated in NEP 2020 to make it inclusive of design thinking, since design thinking is not common in people?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. The thing is actually, it is there actually merged. I found some components. It is there in this policy, but they have not mentioned actually. That should be some kind of specific course like has to be there. They have to introduce, because I heard they already announced sometimes ago that it has to be compulsorily. It's going to be introduced in the school education, school curriculum. But because it's not the mention nowhere actually. So that is very essential, I guess. Otherwise, like people just take it like a bit, they take it very superficially. They will not implement. That is what I feel.
So you think there is what policy? What do you think could be done, like in NEP 2020? How do we include a policy which will make people think more about design thinking?
Yeah. So
that comes with education, of course. That comes very much with education. So,
yeah. But questions like exactly, I mean, all about how to enforce this idea of design thinking in the curriculum. Am I right?
Incorporated in NEP 2020. I guess we are not going to be incorporating anything in 2020.
Yeah.
We are to be sort of extracting its ethos and sort of trying to make it work for us in a positive way. That's what we should be thinking. So design thinking can be a part of a curriculum. That's what you were saying, right?
Yeah, maybe like design thinking they should introduce from the primary level, let's say Anganwadi, starting from Anganwadi, they should have some kind of design thinking, the sense, we need to develop. So maybe some activities, playaway activities, so that the kids, they should think about others also, even their classmates, their colleagues, their family members, everything they have to think, because the self-centered, those things actually, I don't know, all Indian, looking at those examples, the parking, the way they parked in their vehicles on the road or something, they don't care about others, they don't care about even the ATM, they just like a government policy maker, there's like installation here and there, wherever there is the bank people, wherever they feel open space in the market or in the street, they put it there. So they don't think about like that it will cause a traffic problem or something like that, or maybe, and then also like some people, maybe handicapped or old elderly people going to approach ATM, how they conveniently they can approach. So those things actually, because the idea is not there in their mind, the sense is not there. So maybe an Anganwadi from the like a new education system, from the Anganwadi, from that period, we have to introduce somehow. We have to design that, design thinking. How? Because we calling design thinking not good enough. We have to design that entire, policy for the for the kids. And
okay,
then they can,
if
yeah,
I can add
yeah.
little bit to it, I also feel that design thinking is not necessarily for design.
Yes,
For us,
true.
it should be it is for all disciplines.
Yes, yes.
So if all the disciplines get acquainted with what it means and they teach, I think the cross understanding of that subject will be a little more effective. Like, if that is sort of a subject where students of all disciplines learn together.
Yeah,
because everything is interconnected. So I mean, the bus stop and all that you were showing, that could be mechanical engineering, could be design, could be architecture, could be lighting, could be anything.
Yeah.
Could be civil person. So I think it's a subject that is for all.
Yeah, because design thinking is solely not for the designers. It is meant for everybody nowadays. People should feel like that, because the term design they using, the thing is only, it's not our cup of tea. It means for designers. That's why they're neglecting. Yeah.
Thank you. So there are a lot of other questions which have come from the chat box. This is from Purnima Verma. Do you think the current I think she means students, is wise enough or competent enough to choose the right bucket of subjects at the university level? Well, this question I can take because we talk about it in our mentor-mentee system, actually. When we are trying to revise it and making it more robust, we are trying to say that a mentor can become the academic advisor. So it is not so much the case in our program, because our program, we don't give them, we don't have this much of choice right from the get-go in the beginning. It's only in the form of electives. But for engineering, computer sciences, and other humanities and other fields, what is going to happen are the mentors are pretty much going to become the academic advisor who will sort of guide the students. And as the student progresses, they get to know their potential. Accordingly, they will tell them, like, you could take this subject in this semester and not that other one, and limit this much credit. So it is not so much 100% on the student. The mentor is going to help. If anyone else wants to say something about it, go ahead. Otherwise, we can go to second question. Okay, the next question is, in design, would it be acceptable for COA for a license given a sudden diversifications later on? Would that be a change in approach of COA or a license providing authority? If Rajat wants to take on to COA, about COA.
See, Tapan wants to say something. No, there
Or Tapan,
there are architects who will, 1 second, sorry. There are architects who will say that there should not be any licensing for practice. And there are architects who say there should be licensing for practice. It's complicated. The licensing for practice happens to medicine, law, architecture, because they have been considered as areas which affect human life very largely, seriously, emergently. Immediate issues are involved. To get that sense into design, and imagine a situation where design practice needs to be controlled against some basic requirements. It's a very difficult thing to imagine, because in case of law, medicine and architecture, it is possible to say certain minimum requirements have to be fulfilled, which are so fixed, and there is a responsibility of fulfilling that. Otherwise, there will be life-related problems like fire service. So that is why it is there. But design, in sense, there is talk of design council and design, is not there or should be there or not. It's a complicated matter because if it is from the point of view of whether the professional is delivering quality work or not, that's a challengeable issue. Should there be any authority to certify that so-and-so professional is able to deliver high quality of work? This kind of a thing feels to be very required in architecture because it interferes with very large resources, large scale things. And design, it doesn't really necessarily do because it has a hugely flexible order. So therefore, I think a design council idea is not good. But what happens is, from the administrative and point of view, from universities and institutions, where various conflicting views go around, and that time, sometimes the academics would feel like a requirement of design council to ensure certain things they feel that are required, which the administration is not able to understand. Then people feel nahi hona chahiye design council. So that's complex. A little bit more I'm saying as connected to the idea of standard. The other issue is national building code standards provided. So if you see the issues for which the standards are there traditionally, like once there was Neufert, done in Hitler's Germany and went all over the world. So on one side, there are certain ensured surety required, and the other side, it is flexible. So it's a mix of that. It's not an easy thing. Right now, I think it's good that there is no design council to getting a statutory authority position. Or abhi NEP ke hisab se, it's not going to happen also most probably. Because there's so many designs and so many different people, they cannot get together and ask for a design council in a satisfactory manner. Thanks, sorry. So, that's all.
You're on and mute.
Next question is from one of our faculty, Anchal Sharma. Wasn't the main aim of higher education was to make students study as per their interests and capabilities? How is NEP different from the earlier concept of higher education? How does diversifying a specialized course like architecture going to help? I think that's another question. So let's stay there. Wasn't main aim of higher studies, higher education was to make students study what they want to? Is NEP any different from the earlier?
I think it's obvious. There were no chances earlier. Today there are chances. So earlier there were, that's what we've been discussing. The whole idea is that higher education, nature of higher education is changing. पहले तो higher भी नहीं चाहिए था. People would pass BA and live a good life. So it's increasing, changing, evolving. So it's creating more options. If somebody doesn't want to do it, it is there still. You choose. So that choice is open. If you don't want to choice, no. If you say no, it should be. There should not be this choice. There is a necessity of imposing certain things in greater good for greater good of humanity. That's a philosophical question.
Anupa Kakru has a question.
It's a long time back, raising hands.
Yes. And she has a comment rather on research and practice. So Anupa?
Thank you, Chabi. Thank you, everybody, for a very interesting discussion. My comment is on a question that was about research and how it is understood, and is practice equivalent to research? Yes, it is. And internationally, increasingly, there are PhDs which are being called practice-based PhDs, which are acceptable in the field of all creative fields, including architecture, design, and art. And these don't necessarily means that the end has to be a document. The end could be a building, a product, or any other installation or anything of that sort, which doesn't mean that you don't have any requirement to write. You will probably have to write a small document explaining what your research was. And the thing, that line of inquiry or inquiry-based research can happen in practice also. In fact, I think all design is inquiry-based. So I think we have to get out of this notion that research is only textual and is dependent on publishing papers and doing a PhD, which means producing a 20,000 or a 25,000 word document. And world over, it has been understood that there are certain disciplines where the PhD or research could be completely practice based. So I just wanted to make that comment because I think a young person may have asked that question. And there are antecedents to that effect.
KU Leuven has been offering PhD by design since long time back.
No,
since long time back, and this is a mind block that has to be written. Unless it is broken, we had it.
No, and I just attended actually a PhD defense presentation at the university, McGill University in Canada, which was brilliant, and there was not a single piece of paper. It was just a designed space and experience, which was presented to a jury of 3 very well-renowned academicians, and there was a live audience. And I thought it was fabulous. And that defendant did get her PhD as well. So I think we need to relook and as Tapan mentioned, get research out of the bounds of publishing. Because publishing is a very valid point of communication. Obviously, the human civilization progressed when Gutenberg Press was kind of done. But I think we've moved much beyond the written word into the visual communication as well. So the idea is to be able to communicate your line of inquiry any which way you do it. So, and it's being done the world over. So just that point. Thank you, Chabi.
Yeah, thank you, Anuba. And actually, interestingly enough, 2 days back, we had a faculty development program organized, and it was about research in design fields. And this exactly was discussed and addressed by Dr. Gaurav Raheja from IIT. He said the same thing, like, research doesn't have to all end up in PhD or, in a document in publications every time, which is a pressure, which sort of makes it so negative, and everyone is like, I got to write a paper. But that is what universities are sort of driving faculty into, that every single faculty have to have 2 research paper published or 2, so that, and if you're a PhD student, you must have this much. If you're not, you must have this much. Why isn't there any publication for architecture? So this is the push is coming from UGC to the universities down to the faculty. So that is why the question must have been in the mind. So,
but it is changing. Like at Arrow universities now, we have offered call for PhDs, and one strand is completely PhD by practice.
Yeah, of course. That should definitely be the case for design fields. So, okay, next question is, should architecture schools wait for Council of Architecture's guidelines to incorporate NEP's recommendations or not? Well, for now we have to. I mean, for now, fortunately or unfortunately, we have to see, or even we can even get together all the, all the heads of the schools and propose something to council. Either way, since Council of Architecture still continues to be our, approval authority for architecture education, we have to comply with them. We have to at least work with them for now. And I'm sure there is something going on, brewing there for council. If anyone wants to add to it, they're most welcome. Otherwise, we can go to the next question in the interest of time. I think that is all the questions, but there were some few questions from what we had sent you. We had sent you. Yes, Rajat?
No. That sent you thing, I remember.
Yeah. There are few questions in that. There were too many, so we will select a few, and if we can, all of us discuss is what, because we need to get something out of it. My interest was also in this foreign university concept. Foreign universities entering India, how will it be helpful for collaborative education in architecture? how relevant will the collaboration be in India as architecture education is so contextual? This is something even I always wondered. If we have another university's presence on campus, how would that really, I think that would not be so effective, I feel, because historically, the way we have worked and collaborated is we become a local agency to them, always, at least in practice. They try to. Very rarely it is a 50-50 equal collaboration. So how does that really come into place? I think it would be the higher authorities, the vice chancellors, stand on it that, it is some kind of a equal participation, equal knowledge dissemination, equal, is anyone going to answer to that question?
I can say a few things.
Yes, please.
As it looks like that the situation is going to move towards large universities which offer all options within the university. It's pushed towards that, except some special ACs, which are specialist colleges, they will be allowed to exist. Now, large university is a system. It can be run by anybody who can afford to do it. Most of it, they're pushing it towards the government, the public sector. Now, the university is large. It is, it's a foreign university or Indian university. It will depend on what programs they run. It is so sort of interesting, or sort of one can observe. Most people who have gone, who have done a lot of advanced theoretical, historical research on what happened in India since independence or even before that, their work, if you see, they have been able to do it by going abroad. The kind of information regarding city of Chennai you will get at one place in one or two libraries in London, you will not get it. In India, that was not the case for quite some time. So the financial resources will determine who runs the university. So it is the same thing like inviting a foreign company to set up a plant here. What they produce, what not they produce, another issue. So if somebody has the experience in running academic institutions like one big university, they will come here because they have resources, they will set up a big university. Now the question is what kind of knowledge they will provide. If they are propagating a knowledge which is in conflict with local knowledge, then this issue arises. But they may be McDonald's who make Maharaja burgers here. They don't have Maharaja burgers in New York. So Maharaja Mac is here. So there is this huge chemistry about market. And so one doesn't know if the foreign university comes, whether today they will not even have to go for any collaboration or anything. They will have a whole system. And any other university will be in competition with them. And if they are able to give good salaries, then Indian good faculty teaching Sanskrit will go there. And they will absorb all that. It's a question of power and affordability. Foreign में content क्या होगा नहीं पता. तो आपको SOAS, अब फिर बता रहा हूँ, you go to SOAS library, you will get all the Indian journals there in one library. In India, you won't get. So that's a matter of resource. Today, if the university has to be able to do it, whoever does it is fine. That's our market.
Okay.
That's all.
We will take one or two more questions, and I think then we will try to wrap it up. Another question was considering the requirements of the field, what could be the parameters of measuring outcome-based education, the OBE that NEP talks about, in the field of architecture and design? This is purely academic, so this OBE concept, is fairly robust and being pushed.
I'll tell you something. A lot of these concepts, the disciplines like design and architecture, quite a few things, different things, We are already doing it. But the other disciplines like engineering and management, it actually for them to see. What happened in our university, suddenly there was, so after COVID and this kind of things, they brought back the idea of, sort of performance-based. And the other faculties moved towards a situation where they did not want anymore any examination. So, kya karna hai? So they wanted that every course will, at the end of the course, write a big term paper, and they will add up the various papers they do in between, and that will be the major portion, and call one external examiner to look at the term paper. And I was discussing, I said, look, we already do it. So it is actually many of these reform ideas, some of them our design studio-based education already do.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
तो वो हमारे लिए कोई नई बात नहीं है. It is very important for engineers to understand that. That's where it is.
Very true. I completely agree. That's exactly what I mean. Because whenever they talk about this, is that we already do it. We don't have a written way of proving it, how we do it and what we do it, because sometimes the process that we go through is a little ambiguous for others to understand.
Same with soft skills. I'm sorry. This whole soft skill business, if you look at what soft skills teach, every studio, every Tapan Chakrabarti is teaching every student the same thing. Soft skill, the amount of soft skill discussion that happens in a, because it's behavior based, architecture studio, attitude or design studios, attitude based, they're continuously addressing those issues. वो लोग करते नहीं हैं. They are like morons and they go on in one structure, so they need it very badly. जो हमें नहीं चाहिए इतना, we already have it.
Very true. Absolutely true. I think we need to sort of, even if we document it, see if they look at the process. It's a process-based studio, like our design studios. If they look at it, it is all of it is there. There is research, there is soft skills, there's autonomy for students to do the way they want, whatever you call it. So anyway, the next question is, what would the multiple exit option be beneficial in a professional course like architecture? This worries me actually. If after 2 years they get out, after 3 years they get out, should we be giving all these choices? How is that really going to work? And what good or bad it's going to do to the profession?
I think we discussed that once. It is, I told you, as I can see, this is a good idea. Again, it's anticipating certain kind of demand which the supply wants to provide. So in universities, they have offered it. But 1 out of 100 go out. They all be there. Partly because it is not a situation really what imagines that somebody will benefit more going outside. They understand that and therefore go out. nahi hai. The ensured idea the people have in model in mind is still the old one. The one technical degree graduation उनको वही करना होता है. अगर ये होता तो बड़ी अच्छी बात थी. तो अभी आप provide करेंगे. Private universities cannot afford it. I know. How can a private university afford half the students leaving in third year? So fees nahi milegi. Not only private, and my university cannot afford it. All the state universities run an autonomous system. So unless that happens, and you are not going to get, if 20 students go their way, you are not going to get back 20 students. It's a very wishful thinking so far. That's what, and this also connected to jisko aata nahi hai. Somebody finds architecture difficult. We often think in studio-based courses that one is not fit for it. So let him go out. Even that unfit person also don't want to get out, because after a lot of trouble or miracle, he has got into a course called B-Arch. He just doesn't want to get out to go to some other thing. ऐसा नहीं है अभी भी. कहाँ है? The world has to become like that. So it's again chicken.
Yeah. But do you think some kind of a lateral entry should be allowed? Like after second year, somebody you feel is not for architecture, they should go to,
Lateral entry, I know, I tell you experience. Today, lateral entry system works like this for architecture. You need to take an NOC from your college.
Yeah. And from the other college.
Their college.
True.
Now the NOC, क्या होता है? The college which will take you has to have a lateral entry acceptance policy. If their intake is 80, If they take 81, council will flag.
No, I didn't mean architecture to architecture. What I meant is, and if the student we realize after first year or second year is not really for architecture, so should we even tell them? Should
you
it
can,
be
within your
tell them to go to engineering or wherever?
you can do that. Like even we have this, I can see in tech courses, there is foundation and specialization aspect, dimension. So lower level, the foundation agar hai, so a lot of courses, foundation people still doesn't know what they're going for. At the end of the foundation, they know what they want to go for. That model is already there. And also even more classically, there is a upgrade, a chance given for people to change from one discipline to the other discipline within a limited sphere without disturbing the internal system. They're already there. That can be done. See, today what you can do many things. You're already doing liberal. Ashoka University is doing everything is liberal. So you have to see whether if you are talking about a professional course, वही mentee की बात आती है. If you're sure that this guy is better not go into practice, should study more carefully, history courses, writing, and get to do that, not cut out for practice. Do you have an institutional mechanism to push that and get UGC to decide इसकी degree लो? अब degree चली जाएगी तब होगा यही चीज, तब होगा. अभी आप करो तो आपको वो डिग्री की endorsement नहीं मिलेगी ना, चाहे तो बिहार से लोगे या चाहे वो लोगे, तो आप उसको वहां तक पहुंचा नहीं पाओगे. अभी जो हो सकता है एनईपी के तहत पहुंचेगी, क्योंकि यूजीसी की स्ट्रेट जैकेट तो उड़ जाएंगे.
Okay, thank you, Rajat. I think that would be all with the questions, and thank you so much for the panel discussion for all of you. And Jitendra, over to you for your vote of thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much to all the panel members for this nice panel discussion. And you have, I think, all of the queries have been resolved for all the participants. And I would also like to thank Professor Anubha Kakru ma'am for that valuable comment on research and practice. So we are at the last stage of this event. So Director School of Architecture and Design, Professor Chhabbe Mishra ma'am, our distinguished speakers for the event, participants, one and all present here. It's my proud privilege to deliver vote of thanks for such an important event. I, on behalf of School of Architecture and Design and entire fraternity of DIT University, extend my sincere thanks to our Honorable Chancellor, sir, who spared time from his busy schedule to grace the occasion. Thank you, sir. I would like to thank our distinguished speaker, Professor Rajat Ray, for his excellent talk and making this symposium a very meaningful event. Thanks, Professor Rajat. I would also like to thank Professor Tapan Chakravarti, sir, for pointing out the implementation challenges before NEP. Thanks, sir. I would thank Professor Paresh Chaudhary, who very nicely explained the importance of design thinking sense with the help of real world situations. I would like to thank our director, Professor Chhabbe Mishra ma'am, for her continuous valuable guidance and support. I would also like to extend my thanks to Architect Ankita Gaur and Architect Sanan Verma for their commendable efforts to organize the event and taking care of all the technical issues. Last but not the least, I would sincerely like to thank all the participants for this symposium. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. It was wonderful interacting with you, Tapan, Rajat, and Mr. Chaudhary.
Thank you.
It was very nice. I wish we had more and more discussions. Maybe in future we will.
Well, I think you had a good event. It was necessary for to sit down like this and thrash out few things. But a lot of confusion around.
Sanan,
that needs to be cut out.
Yes,
Sanan,
there's a lot of confusion.
Sanan, can we have a group photograph?
वो कैसे होता है? हाँ, वो भी होता है.
Yes, sure, sir. I'll just.
Everyone just turns on their camera. That's all.
Yeah. Turn camera, please. Turn on camera. Who's S?
एक फ्रेम में कितने मिलते हैं?
SB. Who's SB? SB.
One of the few advantages of being online.
एक कोई दिखाई दिया, एक और दिखाई दिया। कितने सारे खींचते हैं?
बहुत सारे हैं सर।
सब स्टिच होगा। तुमने ना कि रोटेटिंग कैमरा भी देखा, लंबा लाइन लगी, एक साइड पे घूम गया कैमरा ऑफलाइन। Megha Chatterjee's face is not visible. Your nose was visible. Now your face is visible.
Meghna, come down a little bit.
Meghna Chatterjee. Yeah, there you go.